Version 4.4 now adds support for animated graphic files in the format of WebP or Webm. Webm being preferred over WebP for animation, and then WebP being preferred for static images that you would have previously used PNG files for to allow for transparency. So this opens the door for a lot of map makers that do animated maps. Here's an example of one of those maps that's found on Dynamic Dungeons on their Patreon. They have a link to this and a lot of other kind of free sample maps that you can do. And then they also offer a Patreon where you can pay a little bit of money to support their efforts and then get access to a larger collection of maps. In addition, we'll be reaching out to a number of Patreon creators and trying to encourage them to post some of these as modules and asset packs on our Fantasy Grounds Forge so that you'll see more and more options there. Then that way they'll stay updated. They can also add line of sight doors, all that sort of stuff as well. So here's an example, and as you can see as I zoom in, you've got some cool kind of water effects that he has in this map, some cool features over here with some light and shadows, that sort of stuff. I'll go into a little bit more detail in a moment to show how you can also utilize Webm to do some really nice animations. We'll be coming out with that in our next art pack for June. It'll have a number of different things that I'm going to show off later this presentation. So a real quick example of some other stuff we can do with Webm is you can use, actually I'll start off here. You can add in animate tokens. These are tokens from, just set all of these to be here, and then so now I've got Devon Knight token packs. We'll have 6 of these that are going to launch along with 4.4, and you can see that you can now access these just like you can any other token. You can control and then mouse wheel up or down to shrink and grow those. You can hold down shift to rotate, and then just treat them like any other kind of asset here. And if you go to your assets, once you have those installed, search for like animated, for instance. Here's a bunch of the ones. We're going to have a demonic pack, holy warriors, goblins, big nasty beast, cosmic horrors, and undead. So if I click into here, you'll see this is what they'll look like in the interface, and then you can drag them and drop them to anywhere where you would previously have a token. So all of these are got some kind of cool little animations here that you can use. Very nice little packs. And hopefully we'll see more of those from Devon Knight and from other creators over time. So yeah, here's some tokens there. You can do some really nice things where here's some examples of some slightly bigger tokens. Let's make those visible as well to the players. Do some really nice stuff with some kind of transparency effects supported by those images, doing some really nice kind of cool stuff. So yeah, so look forward to using those in your modules as well. And I'm going to show how you can take some of the animations and you can take a flat map and you can make it seem like it's not very flat. Here's an example of one where I've done a few of those things. You can see if I turn off all of these features, this is how the map was originally. And then I went in and I added some stuff in the trees here so that those have like a little bit of, tree leaves and so forth kind of blowing in the wind. You've got a lake here. I can add kind of some shimmering water effects to the lake. Those are with some stamps. I can add some birds to kind of fly overhead and at different heights. So I've got a little bit of depth that's kind of portrayed here. Some fish into the water so that there's fish swimming around, and then I can also add the ocean over top so that it does reflect the layers, so you can have things layered on top of other things. And then if I want to add some waves, I can add some waves to the shoreline here. So I'm going to show you really quickly how I would kind of create some of those things. Let's just turn off all of these, and how you can use Webm files from some of the new upcoming packs to really do some really cool stuff. So here I'm going to go through. I've got some local images that I've just been playing around with that Josh Watmaw has been creating for me to play around with. But like the example of the shoreline, you can go to your brushes and you can drag that across to here, and now I've got it linked to a brush. All right, I got linked to a brush. I need to create a new paint layer because I'm currently on an invisible layer, so that would add it to an invisible layer, which I don't want. I want to be on a new layer here, and this will be my new waves. I just double click on it here to then give it any name that I want. But here I can do new waves, and I can again select my shore here, and I can start to paint. Get this out of the way here. I can basically pull back here. I don't like that. Let's see. So there. To there, for instance. Which I've done it backwards. So I'll just do Control Z. And so I'll do it the other direction. So, sorry. So I'll start here. And I'm just basically clicking along where I want the shoreline to be. And double click when I'm done. And now I have a little bit of a shoreline there. Once you kind of have the shoreline set up, definitely watch Joshua Watmall when he does his presentation. He'll be a lot smoother with it than I will. But you can go to your layers, and now I can modify this and say I want to change the tint of it. Let's say I want it to be less strong, so I can dial down the opacity here. I could color it. Let's say it's got a weird effect where there's some kind of purple algae bloom that's getting washed ashore. You could kind of play around with these kind of things, tweak it a little bit kind of after the fact. But that's how you would do it with kind of a brush. If I wanted to do something like fish, let's say I could add a paint here, and I could say let's grab a fish brush. Let's go to my layers here, grab a fish brush, and then here you'll see this is the size that the fish will be. I can dial that down to be, say, like a 3 or something, and now they'll be maybe a lot smaller. I can even go smaller and say I want it even smaller than that, and I could just basically change my corner type. Let's maybe do round, and then I can kind of click here, and then the fish will kind of follow the path that my mouse did. So here I can, and they will just kind of swim along that pathway. So you could add another layer over top to block that out if you wanted to frame in this particular image, for instance. So it looks like they're only staying in this kind of central area there. But that's how you would do that. If I wanted to do something like a stamp, I could go to stamps and I could grab, like we have these examples of some birds here. And you can see if I just stamp these, now I've got some birds kind of circling overhead, and you can do multiple stamps. The nice thing about this kind of thing is these files are really, really small, and it adds a nice kind of animated effect, just a little bit of movement to an existing map without really adding a whole lot. And then you can still hold down control to make bigger, be a little higher up, for instance, and then send them in different directions. So here I've got lots of little things. You can even tweak them after the fact. Like let's say I really wanted to come through here, and I wanted to edit this particular map, and I wanted to modify my brush strokes. I could even go through and do that. Let's see if I can remember how to do that. There we go. So yeah, click on the edit button, and here you can see I can then modify. I don't really like that. That's not really the path I wanted these things to follow. Drag it around here, change the path a bit. Maybe they're going to swim. All right, that's not good because then they're going to be in the middle of that. There we go. Or you could even delete points if you don't want to do that. And there you go. Same thing with some of the other stuff you can do too. Other stamps you can do that we're going to have is going to be like a water overlay. So let's go back to my stamp here, do a water overlay, drop that in there. And you can see right now it's kind of large, so you can hold down Control and mouse wheel to go up or down, hold down Shift to kind of spin it up or down here. And this one, again, I would recommend probably look for maybe adding multiple layers so that you have a little bit finer control over it. The other one is hold down F and mouse will in or out, and it'll like fade from the edges. And so now you can kind of do a little bit of that. I'm holding Shift to rotate, control down a little bit more. And then, you know, you can kind of come up with some kind of cool effects here. So now I've got some water effects there where it looks like, you know, the different water is reflecting in each of these different pools. And they're slightly, you know, askewed from one another. The expert on that from our team is going to be Josh Watmall. He does a stream every Sunday, so you can check out his stream. So I'll call that Lake Reflections. And again, like I said before, you can go to your layers. Now that I have the lake, I can say, okay, do I want it to be a little bit less severe than that? I can kind of tweak it back so that it gives it a very subtle kind of look. And now you have a really interesting map that started off as a 2D map, and each of these layers is relatively small. In fact, I've got most of these turned off now, but each of these three things, the file sizes are really small. And if it repeats the same exact image from before, then it will be intelligent enough to only send it once over the network. So it should be responsive for your players. So we'll be having lots of kind of interesting effects that you'll be able to use to add and just enhance your existing maps within Fantasy Grounds and do some really kind of cool stuff there. So look forward to kind of future updates on that front, and let us know what you have. Kind of share what you have online. We'd love to see what you have. Once you're done with this map, another thing you can do now that we added is there's now an export button, export image to file. So I can click on that and I can select, I've already got one here, final map, save it, overwrite it, and then now basically in my assets, I'll go in and refresh if it's not already there. And then now I've got this, which I can say create an image record, and you'll see that now all of that stuff that I've just done is basically all on a single map. Now it's not going to, you know, if you have animations, it's going to do a single snapshot of the way the map looks at any given point in time. But you can see you can do this with brushes. Anything that you use, any layered based map that you did will basically be consolidated down into a single map, and that'll be very useful for, you know, once you get really creative and you're using lots of cool assets. It just simplifies it in future scenes for you if you want. Here are some other maps that we have from Dynamic Dungeons. You'll see they'll all be loaded up here. On that same Patreon, you have things like this one here, which is, these are both from the Dragonlance module. So it has the fray on the outside. I can go ahead and pull this up here. You'll see as I zoom in, he has little wind effects here on a few of the maps, and then the fray, where if you get into the fray, other things happen to you basically within that campaign adventure. Here's that one. Here's the one with some kind of nice water effects. Let's zoom this over here. These maps are a little large. They're about 25 meg. So make sure to keep that in mind with your players. With some of the Webm animated brushes that we have, those are going to be much smaller. But lots of kind of cool effects. If you happen to notice, before I had these kind of interesting dice here at the bottom of the screen, there are also going to be 2 new dice packs that we're going to be launching. So you'll go to your dices. You're going to go to your dice here. Let me get rid of all of the, not get rid of, but let me collapse these other existing packs down just to kind of show you guys what we have available here. We have Wizard and Artificer. So we have 2 new packs. So the first one is going to be, let me just do one at a time, is going to be Annulus of Focus. And you'll see that there's a bunch of fixed ones here that you can select. This is the hot oil one. And then below you'll have the same thing but with an effects layer. So here's the hot oil. Here's the hot oil with an effects layer. So if I pick these up and roll these, they'll have this kind of interesting ring around each one of those. So we have hot oil, we have frost boil, bog hollow, sunlit catalyst, scorched sunset, which you can see these have some additional kind of textures on those. Time stop, verdant portal, moss willow, floodvine, gnarlwood, sandy cerulean, tranquil coral, steel thicket, a gold pack, and then you'll see these are all colorable. So here's the basic one that's colorable that's going to allow you to adjust the body and the text color. So here I can pick anything I want. Let's go kind of this orangey color. So you can really kind of go kind of crazy with these things. So I'll pick like this color combination. And then as I move around, you'll see these other variants of that same kind of color combination. They give you different kind of styles with whether you're going to use a light color, dark color, etc. To kind of come up with stuff. And then down below, just in line here, I can do the same thing with an effect. And you'll notice that the effect picks up my body texture color automatically. So if I change that here to something else, now I've got the same dice. So that's a new feature that we added, which is basically we pass through the body texture color to the effect. That's going to allow us to do some kind of cool stuff in the future. So that's the Annulus of Focus. Like I said, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colorable dice, and then a bunch of fixed kind of setting colors and textures that we've already kind of chosen that we think look really sharp. And then you have an FX version of each one of those. So lots of different dice to choose from. Let me close these down and show off really quickly the Knots of Fate. So Knots of Fate is going to be set up exactly the same way. You've got two different sets of dice. You have some with the basic versions on the top with 1, 2, 3, 4 colorable sets, and then you have the same set down below. So let's go through these real quick. So you have Frostboil, you have Sizzling Amber, Aquatic Mirage. I'm going to skip the Mystic Chroma for now. Go to Vivid Spring, Radiant Coral, Sandstone Swirl, Luminous Lavender, Enigmatic Seaweed, Flaming Tapestry, which I love this dice color. It looks amazing. And then again, you've got the same versions with the effects underneath, but now the effect's a little bit different. You got Burnished Spice, Autumn Entwined, Harmonic Lilac, and Gilded Mint. Crimson Jade Vortex, which has got kind of a multiple colors that it kind of fades through. And Citrus Infusion, and then a gold color. And then again, you've got your colorable one where you can modify any of those kind of colors that you want. Let's go yellow. That's a pretty garish color. All right, how about that one? And then so now that if I do these, I can see this one is a stained copper, I believe. Yeah, stained copper. Here you have Mystic Chroma, which has the same texture, the same color combinations as before, but it has a really interesting texture. And then you have a Rusted Iron as well, which overlays that color. So you can see you can come up with some really interesting kind of dice combinations here. And then get the same thing where it's going to pass the base color, the body color, back through to your effect layer. So that's Dice in version 4.4. Those will be launching next week as well. So the next feature that we have is going to have the reference manual and updates that we've done to the reference manual. So one of the big, most asked for features is that when we started to shift adventures from using story entries to being reference manuals, a few different things kind of popped up. You could always pop this page out, and it has the images and the text and the other content that you would expect within a story entry. So you got links to maps that you can then pop the maps out. These all link back to other entries, which are also entries here in the reference manual. But one of the things was that the minimum size was really small. So now you can really shrink this down, and you can see it's pretty much close to the same size as the story entry. So much smaller on all of these windows. Even those that have images can be shrunk down, and then you can kind of see where the image is, and then as you expand it out, it'll do some of that stuff for you automatically. And we're going to keep working on this to get it really super smooth, but that's that's one of the main things that was requested, is that people wanted to be able to keep these really, really small, and then just when they needed them, they could expand them and zoom them out. You can still hold down the control click anywhere in a window to resize those, or you can grab the sizing handle at the bottom. You still have your navigation, forward page, next page, that sort of stuff, and then you still have, on any of these, you still have the option to then click and pop out any images to then share that with the player as well. Another feature that's really nice is that, let's say that I'm customizing this campaign for my local play group. I could come through here and I could just unlock this, and now I could just say, players introduction, and I could highlight that and say, hello everyone, welcome to the Cataclysm, whatever, right? And then again, I could use the hotkeys to change my paragraph types, or I could just select it here. You can make that a chat frame. You can do everything that you could do in a story entry within the text, plus you can have images and so forth as well. So now that I've got this, I can now come through. I can also add new sections. If I want to add an image block, I can just do that, and then I can grab an image from anywhere. Like let's say I had this map of the Curse of Strahd, I could just drag that in there, and now I've got a new image in there. If I lock it, this is now all set and ready to go. You can see it even has animation down here, which is really cool. And now I can pop that out and share that with my players, just like I could any other map. You could do the same thing with the other, all of these features were there before, where you could do two-column stuff, where you've got an image on one side and you've got text on the other. Those do also support some of the new tokens, the new animated stuff. So for instance, I think I've got, I don't know if I have any there, but you could basically use anything, any animation, drop it in, and then have text on the other side. Text. And then I could put frames around things so that it's, I could really style it out quite a bit. And then these frames and everything, the decorations will change depending on, which rule set I have. If I don't like any of these changes that I've done, I can actually do a revert and revert those changes. But before I do that, I'm going to actually copy it to show you. You can copy this, and now I can unlock this chapter. And let's say this was Cataclysmic Fire. Let's say I wanted to put it, what chapter is this one in? Cataclysmic Fire. So let's say I wanted to add a page here. My version. Then I can come through here and I can paste in the record sheet. Now I've got my version of that same page. I could move it up or down in the table of contents hierarchy. And then I could go back to the original Cataclysmic Fire, and I could just say, I don't want to change that one. I want to leave that one alone. So I'll click Revert Changes, and it says, are you sure you want to revert for this record only? So it reverts that one. I still have my version down below, which I can then lock and modify further. So now I've got multiple versions of this. And another one of the things you can do too is you can shrink the whole thing down. So you have the table of contents. You can collapse everything down. There we go. Shrink them down, grow them, whatever. And then basically, now that you've got them selected, it'll change it in the window on the right. Okay. And you could do the whole module too. You could do a typical revert from your modules. This was in this one here. For instance, I could go to activation. I could still do the revert Dragonlance. I can still right click here and do revert changes, but that'll do the entire module and get rid of everything that I've made a modification on. Whereas the single page revert that shows up here when you unlock and this is new. Now it recognizes that I've added this text here, and I can undo it. So you can go through and you can change anything. If you don't like something in a story, you can modify it. You can really enhance it and customize it, make it your own. And add content, add encounters, anything you want to do, you can basically do directly in the story entry here. You can also do the same thing where you can build under modules. On the module builder, you can go through and create your own entire stories here, new chapters, subchapters, so forth, and then when you're ready, you can export those as well. One of the other major components we added to this particular update for version 4.4 is you'll notice here there's a sound context menu which will pop up. You'll notice it's got some ghouls in here. That's because I happen to have a module that adds sounds for monsters in the bestiary for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And if I go to my combat tracker, you'll see I've got ghouls in here, and there happen to be sounds for ghouls that it automatically picks up. So if I get rid of those, that's being powered by a actually the Lost Mine of Phandelver has ghouls in it, but let me actually show you the other packs we have. So I can go here, do Syrinscape. These will be launching along with 4.4. We're going to have the Lost Mine of Phandelver Adventure module. We will also have the Monster Manual and the Player's Handbook Weapons and Spells packs as well. So those will go through. There's going to be settings here which will allow you to link to your Syrinscape account. To use the Syrinscape sounds, we don't actually include these sounds themselves. What we're basically adding is we are adding the ability for those sounds to show up on your soundboard automatically at the appropriate times. And then it's going to call to it, and it's going to play through the Syrinscape web player and then play those sounds for you automatically and mix them in with everything else. So let me just kind of demonstrate what that looks like. So first I'm going to show you the Lost Mine of Phandelver and show you what's kind of included there. So as I've got the reference manual open here on the side, you'll notice as I go to the Goblin Arrows, I've got this window open, and it knows that I can start playing the intro music for this section. The very first time you load any URL-based content within Fantasy Grounds, it'll ask you, do you want to approve that? You can say yes on a per basis, or you can say yes to all, and it will do anything from the same domain name will be approved. So here I would recommend doing yes to all. Because it's a mood, it'll show up as in the Now Playing section. And then as I navigate through the story, you'll see that now I've got the original Goblin Ambush, and I've got a Goblin Trail. I can switch the mood. Any mood that you play will replace another playing mood. You can only have one mood playing at a time. That's because they would be redundant. And so it'll fade out the one and then start the next one automatically. As I move through here, now I'm on Cragmaw Cave, and for this particular adventure, it has some music. I could choose one of the music elements, any of those ones, play those, and then they'll start to play. Or I could set a mood, and it'll set the mood. Again, the music will allow me to accumulate multiple ones, but only one mood will be allowed at a time. SFX should show up as well. I can stop any playing things here. I can adjust my volume. If you have your window open, which is under your settings here, once you've got your authorizations set up, you'll have a generate web player session URL. You'll send that, and then you'll send an invite here. All your players will click on this button here, and it'll open a new window with the player that will actually kind of cue those sounds up for you. I'm going to turn it off for this particular video, but you can kind of imagine it's going to play these various sounds for you automatically. So it'll have these features here. As you go through, you play some more. Let's see if I grab a battle map, for instance, and let's say I go to Clark's Cave here, and there's an encounter. Now that I've got Clark's Cave open, you see it's got a lot more stuff that it shows up. So it has each of these, which I can collapse and show if I want. It's got general content with a bunch of goblin noises that I can queue up individually. These are one-shots. It'll play them. They don't show up in the end of the playing window because they're like fire and forget sort of sounds. But I can queue each of those things up. I can go to Clark's Cave. I can do bugbear roars or wolf growls, that sort of thing. But then once the encounter is here, I can add these to the map. They'll add in the combat tracker, and then I'll have a whole new section of stuff which is basically goblin sounds from the combat tracker. So here I've got all of the NPCs that we support the sounds for. It's got Ripper, which is a wolf, and then Goblin, Clark, and then even if Fire Pit shows up because it has a sound effect as well. So I can queue up all of these. The Fire Pit in this case is an SFX, so it'll continue to loop and run as long as I have it running here until I hit stop. The other ones are going to be mostly have a different number of things I can fire off that will be like one-shots or elements or that sort of thing. In this case, there is a mood. If I wanted to use a different mood, I could switch and have a goblin battle queue up. And that's how the adventures are going to do. As soon as I remove these, like let's say Ripper gets defeated, then you'll see he'll drop him out as the goblins both drop out. The first one is still there, so then now there's just the bugbear left. So it'll help kind of keep the your sound window, smaller and easy to kind of manage as you're running multiple applications, essentially all within Fantasy Grounds. And once it's all cleared, those go away. Once I close this section of the window down, it starts to remove the content back here as well, and then I'm back to kind of where I was previously. That also works for story entries. Here, if I go to, let's see, the same thing, Cragmaw Hideout, it'll show the sounds from this particular section, and then as I navigate through, you'll see it'll adjust the content for me as I move through the adventure. Once I go out of that part of town and I go into, say, Phandalin, you'll see now it's got a town market and some other sort of stuff that will play. And then I think as I explore here, there's going to be, farm sounds when I go to a farm, the provision shop, the orchard, that sort of stuff. Gives me a couple other different options that I can play as we role play our way through that particular adventure. So that is with an adventure module. Let me turn off the adventure module here. Turn that one off and just show you what it looks like with just the monster manual stuff and with player weapons and sounds. So if I was to go to just my NPCs and I pulled up a ghoul, for instance. So once I take this ghoul and add the ghoul into the combat tracker or the CT, then it should show up here. Okay, actually it looks like I don't have that module loaded. Let me load that module. Yeah, monster manual. Once I load the module, now as I have the NPCs open, it says, oh yeah, now I know that you have a ghoul. Get rid of these. Whoops. Menu, delete. All non-friendly. All right, so let me try somebody else. Let's go to monster manual here. I don't have the monster manual loaded. Let me load a monster manual. All right, now I've got my monster manual. So again, as I pull up some NPCs here, if I have like a dragon, now I've got an adult black dragon. If I have a white dragon, then you'll see it has an ancient white dragon with sound effects for white dragons. Archmage. Not every single one will have sounds, but the vast majority will. Bandits, etc. So if I have an encounter, let's grab an encounter here. Actually, this one has vamps and ghouls and a stone golem, so some of these will be automatically picked up, and it has ghouls and an ice devil and a stone golem and a vampire with sound effects for each of those that I can do. On top of that, the player's handbook module, if I look at the sound sets here, has a bunch of generic spells, different sounds that I can do if I can't find anything else that works. Summoning spells, summoning allies, necromantic spells, conjuring, and then different ones based off the level. I can just run those here for freeform spells, or I can do, you'll see there's, hold on, I'll go to sound sets, it'll be easier to look at here. So under sound sets, it'll have things like attack and item triggers. So here's a bunch of stuff for like crossbows. If you hit with a crossbow, it'll play this sound for you automatically. You don't have to hit the button. It'll just pick it up based off of your chat window. Misses, crits, fumbles, all that sort of stuff will work as well. And then that's attack item triggers. There's damage triggers, which are going to be basically automatically pick up whenever you do, say, radiant damage or poison damage or slashing or whatever. It'll play the sound here. Slashing or cold or fire. Here's fire damage. And it'll look for things within your chat kind of output. So if you had like a wizard, for instance, let's blow him up, grab the actions. Again, if I did attack with a crossbow, it'll automatically, when I do hit or miss on someone, it'll play the appropriate sound. When I do the damage, it'll automatically do the sound damage. And then the same thing for all of these various chromatic orbs, like here's acid or cold, fire, lightning, etc. So these are all playing different sound effects based off of what I have loaded, essentially. Unfortunately, the sound is not coming through on this recording of the video, but it'll play those for you automatically. All right, and then, so yeah, that's basically how you would use those different packs. You can also build these yourself. You don't have to buy these packs. These packs are kind of convenience packs that Syrinscape and SmiteWorks work together to kind of create to enable this functionality to work well. But you can do all of that directly on your own. Let me close down a few things here, show you what that looks like really quickly. So basically, you'll go into your settings, and if you have a Syrinscape account, you can just basically import, and it gives you a list of all the sounds, and you can utilize these sounds yourself. So let me show you that first. I'll go to Sound Sets. I'm going to create a new group and just say, we'll call it Group 1. That sounds good. That sounds good. I won't relabel it. If you want to relabel it, you just click on the Edit Groups button, and you can say it My Sounds, for instance. And then you select that from the list. My Sounds, I can say add a new item, and here I can determine, do I want it to be, I don't know, maybe an item sound. Let's look for like a weapon. Let's say I want to do a Berserker Battle Axe, have a specific sound. So I can drag that over here, and I can say I want it to be an attack. When I crit with this particular weapon, I want it to do a specific sound. So here I could have do a search on axe, for instance. And typically for these kinds of sounds, you would want to look for something called a one-shot. So you could change on the drop-down and say, only show me the one-shots. And you could say, let's see, I don't know if any of those, let's see, slash. Let's do like a blade slash sound, for instance. I could drag that over to the sounds, and then it would automatically pick that up. The pattern should have automatically filled out. I'll have to make a note of that one. But you can build it in the same way that you would with, say, here. Just put the name of the weapon that you want to get picked up within the pattern. Okay. The other stuff you want to do, so you've got these sounds, you can just drag these sounds over into here. You can create as many different sounds as you want. Close down some windows here. Let's go to My Sounds. If you wanted to do a story element sound, for instance, here you could grab, let's say you have a custom story that you just created. Uncategorized, let's say introduction. So then now I drag that over here, and it knows that I'm going to do a story introduction, and I could decide I wanted to queue up a specific, let's see, maybe I wanted to have a mood playing or music when I kick off. So let's say I wanted to have pirate music play. So when I start my campaign, when I get to this window, I want it to do this. If I then change and say, okay, now finale, I've done a couple other different things, then I want a finale one, then I could create a new story entry sound for a finale, and I could say, let's say maybe stone music is what I want to play once it gets to that stage. So now what basically happens is, as I run my game, you'll see I've got my context window open here, and that basically you open it by clicking on this little musical notes. And then as I basically start off with my introduction, it reminds me that, oh, you wanted to play pirate music here. And then once I get to the finale, it says, oh, you wanted to play stone music. And you could add as many different sounds as possible. If I also wanted to have, let's say, for the introduction, I wanted to have this music play, but I also wanted to have, I don't know, like inn sounds or something like that. Let's see if I can find, here's an inn, a hospitable inn. a mood, and let's say I had some sound effects from, I don't know, Stonehill Inn. Maybe drag that one over. Let's maybe look for tavern. All right, some tavern sounds. Drag those over. Maybe a fight gets started. Maybe that's one of the different things I could do. Just general tavern sounds. Anything you want, you can basically put here. Tavern hearths. And again, as soon as that is open, don't do copy, but as soon as you click it open, now your soundboard updates automatically with all of the different things that I've basically set up. And the same works for reference manual pages. If you want to have the same set of sounds work for either option, so like let's say the introduction, let's say I used a lot of things a lot. I could say I want this to be basically for the story link introduction, but I also want it to be for Adventure 2 intro. Anytime I have an introduction, I want to use this, then you can just basically reuse these things. And so now if I'm in introduction, that works. And then now if I'm in Adventure 2, it also brings up the same thing. So you can drag as many different story links here. It's a many-to-many relationship that you can establish between those. And then you can basically all set them up. Some other stuff that we have is we have some file-based stuff. So if you wanted to have your own imports, you could put in the paths of all the files that you want. Those will show up, and then you'll be able to drag and drop those over, just like you did the other one. That will fire off the native, like either Windows, Mac, or Linux sound player for your operating system and play that, which is not quite as nice as Syrinscape. Syrinscape fades things in and out and does like an actual mix of those sounds. So there's also on the Forge, Cameron has put together like a VLC player, which allows you to do a little bit more of those things, but of course it's more advanced. If you're not familiar with VLC, there's an extra setup kind of involved with that, which is kind of beyond the scope here. But that gives you other options. You can do a CSV import of a bunch of sounds. If you have other sounds just within a local file folder structure, you'll want to make sure that you place those in a subfolder of Fantasy Grounds, just so that we know that those are safe to access essentially. And then really the final thing that we have is under images, there's an import button. And we've now added support under the drop downs here. You see you have UVTT files, Dungeon Draft 2 files, and then here's another Dungeon Forge 2, I believe. I don't know. But different types of kind of universal VTT files that are out there. You can now import those directly, and it'll bring them into Fantasy Grounds for you automatically. So that's it for version 4.4. Stay tuned for future updates, and thanks for watching. Take care.